My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Well, today's Gospel is from the opening chapter of St. Mark that tells us about St. Peter's mother-in-law and how Jesus decided to go and heal her because she was with a high fever. And Jesus would have gone there because St. Peter himself asked him to go and heal her. She was on the verge of death, really. So he went in there together with Peter, with Andrew, James, and John into that house. And the Gospel from St. Mark says, immediately they told him about her. He approached, grasped her hand, and helped her up. And then the fever left her, and she waited on them. And then it goes on to talk about what other miracles he did after the sun had set and so forth. But I just want to focus on that little phrase that is transmitted to us from St. Mark. Now remember, whenever we read St. Mark, we have to think that what St. Mark is recounting is based on the testimony of St. Peter himself. Because St. Mark was like he wasn't actually there. He was simply recounting what St. Peter himself told him, right? So what we get here is actually, though it's told by St. Mark, like written in the Gospel of St. Mark, it's nevertheless like a vivid account of how St. Peter himself experienced this, right? And St. Mark is very simple. He uses simple phrases. He's not very literary in his style in that sense. It's just colloquial. Like he always says, and then he did this, or immediately he did that. Like here he says, they immediately told him about her. Apparently, the word immediately is like his favorite word. He uses it like 40 times in the Gospel because he starts the phrases, immediately he did this, and so forth. So here, the same thing happens. It's very straightforward. And so perhaps that's why he includes little details, if you pay attention, that Peter would have told him that must have touched St. Mark quite a bit. Peter told him that Jesus approached, that he grasped her hand, and that he gently helped her up. That's what the Gospel says. It's a simple phrase. Now imagine a doctor coming to his patient. Usually they grasp your hand, and it's why they check your pulse, and then they look down at their watch, and they're counting and see, okay, is this person alive or dead, or how's he doing? So here Peter seems to remember the tenderness of that action when he saw Jesus lifting up his mother-in-law, right? Because the affection, how he so carefully helped her to stand, perhaps with an encouraging word, like maybe saying like, you can do it. I know you've been in bed for a little while, but don't worry. Everything is going to be fine. Lean on me. There you go. Lean on me. And he helped her up. This is now. I mean, obviously the Gospel doesn't say all this, but it's the fact that they included all these details about helping her up suggests that Peter really remembered this well, and because she had been with a fever and she had been practically on the point of death. And now there's an interesting detail that I just want to add here, is that the key word here that is used is that he gently helped her up, or he helped her up. And the Greek word there is egerein. I don't know Greek that well, but that's what I'm told. It's egerein. And that word is exactly the same word that is used when the holy women go to the tomb, and the angel says to them, he says to them, you seek Jesus of Nazareth, the crucified. He has been raised. Egerein, or it's not exactly egerein, it's egerte in the different form, but it's the same root word. He has been raised. So it's not just that Jesus helped Peter's mother-in-law up, but he kind of like raised her up. foreshadowing in some ways the transforming power of the resurrection in a certain way. So obviously she wasn't dead, but she must have been pretty despairing, and she felt practically dead. Because when somebody is sick for a while, they can feel quite lonely and isolated, and especially with a sickness that is chronic, they can lose hope, and they feel totally useless and maybe even abandoned. And that's what Jesus sensed, and Peter was amazed to see how his mother-in-law suddenly was on her feet, and she suddenly felt useful, and Jesus brought her back to life, you could say. And she started to serve. And she probably didn't need to be prodded. She probably wanted to go and make her best lasagna, or maybe her favorite pierogies that everybody loved. I don't know, whatever, your favorite food. And so the woman has been saved from death and despair, and brought into a new form of life that is defined by her service to Jesus and others. Lord, I thank you for this miracle as I try to imagine the scene of Peter's mother-in-law being raised up, being transformed, the fever suddenly gone. I imagine that, Lord. And what happened? Well, you impelled her to serve. Your gentleness led her to want to serve the others. And in fact, Lord, you said later on, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. You said that even in St. Mark. How often do I serve in my daily life, in my profession, in my family? How often do I have a real spirit of service, as though this is really what my life is really about? That's what gives me energy. And in fact, one of the earliest titles of the Pope, coined by Pope Gregory the Great in the 7th century, was Servus Servorum Dei, the servant of the servants of God. So we're all servants of God. Even the Pope considers himself a servant of God, but even he's a servant of the servants. So now, you and I were not the Pope, but we do have a life to give. We do want to serve truly in a way that can really help others. Saint Josemaria liked this phrase in Italian, per servire, servire. Per servire, servire. It's a play on the words. Maybe you don't capture it right away in Italian, but literally it means, in order to be of service, serve. Or in other words, in order to blaze a trail, to make your life useful, to truly be of service, to make a difference, well, serve. Do something that, have that inherent attitude in your life. Be of service. That's what I want too. I want to really be like that. I want to be a person who serves. And of course it applies at work, it applies at school, in my profession. And in some ways we really can produce like beauty in the world if we really have that attitude of service right from the very first moment of the day. Because that action right today, as I get on my knees, get out of bed, I'm going to serve, Lord. It's like a protection or like an inoculation against pride, or the dangerous thought that my life is really just about me, serving myself. It's kind of to say, I will serve today. I will serve you, Lord. I will serve the church. I will serve others. I will serve my family. It's like a vaccine against pessimism, against discouragement right from the start, so that we don't get down. It's like a booster shot against thinking that we're just like getting worse, we're getting older, and it's not worthwhile. So maybe today, I don't know what time you're listening to this, but maybe today is a good day to just like renew your desire to serve. I renew my desire to serve wherever I am and at every moment, not just to do a job. When I begin the day, maybe what can be the approach that I have? Is it going to be, what do I have to do today? What's the work that I have to do? Or maybe, how will I serve? In what way will I serve people today? Even if it costs me a lot, if it's difficult. I heard that somebody many years told me that in Galicia, in Spain, there's a saying that apparently is popular, that when a mother gives her children to eat, when she prepares food for her children, she always gets to eat the head of the fish. Right? She gets, in other words, she gets the worst for herself. And that does happen when we really serve. Or do I choose just the best for me? I always want the best. I don't want the best, Lord. I want to give myself through service. And our Blessed Mother, who is the servant of the Lord, the handmaid of the Lord, can intercede for us so this be true. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your help that they may be put into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.